Welcome to the Pedagogy Primer podcast. I'm Mark Gallimore, Director of the Center for Online Learning and Innovation at Canisius University. In this episode, we're joined by Dr. Mary Becker in the Department of Economics and Finance here at Canisius. Today, Professor Becker describes her finely honed assessment strategies that blend collaborative student effort with real-world circumstances. She offers insights on the challenges and triumphs of group work. Dr. Becker teaches the introductory finance course as well as intermediate corporate finance and financial institutions and markets. She serves as the faculty advisor for the Society of Economics and Finance, SEF. Her research focuses on behavioral finance, transportation economics, and corporate finance. Welcome, Dr. Mary Becker.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start out with what you teach in the Wehle School of Business here at Canisius.
I'm in the Department of Economics and Finance, and for really the 6 years that I've been here, I've had the Introduction to Corporate Finance class, which is taken by every student in the School of Business, and then upper level classes include corporate finance and financial institutions.
Okay, so across a range of different levels of students?
Yeah, it's nice. I get them as sophomores when they're in the introductory class, and then as they progress in their major, I have them for more in-depth finance work. And
my understanding is that group work plays a prominent role in your courses in pedagogy, and spend a few moments on student Reddit and you figure out that group work is often associated with misery and unfairness by students and occasionally by faculty across various disciplines. But it obviously has value and import that's been established in studies of pedagogy, as well as, interfacing with business, government, healthcare outside of academia. We're interested to hear how you do group work. And I guess I'll start by asking why you think it's important for your students.
I base a lot of my assignments off of the work that I did in industry, and that I was always on a team doing things. I worked at GE Capital on audit groups, and then I worked for KeyBank in investment banking, and those are long-term projects where I don't know, 6 months to a year and a half. So we're always working together. And these are big projects with lots of feedback. So my assignments, especially as the students move forward in their career here, are based on what I've learned and what I did in industry. And so considering how important it is in industry is why it features in my classes. So for the introductory level, the students are given an opportunity to work in groups on their homework, which is a low stakes type of assignment. And I encourage them to work in groups. I suggest they work in groups. Yeah. I think it's rational to work with a partner. Why not? But it's not required. And I also, as part of evaluation, I give tests in class. So I don't worry about free riding in that sense because they're going to have to learn the material to do well on the exams. And to the extent that they're working together on homework, I think it can help them learn the material. As they move along, the group work in the financial institutions class, I could talk specifically about a project that they are required to do in a group with a partner.
Yeah.
So that class, we study financial institutions and specifically banking, and banks behave differently than other corporations and institutions. So when we dive into a bank, the students are required to select a bank, get the financial statements from the SEC, and then start to do analysis. So they work together on that spreadsheet, And because sharing of documents is so easy, it's very easy for two people to be working in a spreadsheet at the same time.
Yeah.
So they work together to develop the spreadsheet, and then I meet with the students, and we go through the spreadsheet together, the 3 or 4 of us, and I work with them and click through all of the cells and make sure everything is working properly. From there, once they have the go-ahead that their spreadsheet looks appropriate, they move to creating the project, which would be a slide deck. This is very similar to people that I still stay in touch with in industry as far as their type of work product. It starts with some modeling and Excel, and then they move to putting their work into a slide deck, into a PowerPoint. It's a large enough project that in order to be able to complete it in a reasonable amount of time, they certainly should be working with each other and relying on each other. So that's why it works well with such a large project. And it's just really reflective of the things that I've done and the things that I continue to hear from practitioners, which is this is the way, we put information together for clients right now in industry.
So these are professional skills that are must-have. This is what they will face working in the world if they pursue a career in accordance with their current major.
Yes. And I've had a couple of speakers this semester reflect what I've been telling the students, which is always an awesome thing. Yeah. I'm not making this up. See these professionals telling you need these skills. And they're reflect what I mentioned as far as you need to be able to work with other people. And, the last speaker reflected he works and he sends it up the chain and it comes back down and it comes up and down. And then it proceeds up more levels. And so that's reflected a little bit in that they do work on the spreadsheet. They come to me and we talk about it. I send back feedback, and then it comes to me again. And then once it's complete, then they can move on to the next step. So that also, in working with the group, they see how the work can move back and forth. And it's not, obviously, eventually it gets completed, but I get involved before the end product. Like I'm working with them throughout, so it's not getting to the end and saying, okay, this didn't work out and we should have caught this a long time ago.
So it's very much a scaffolded process. Although in education, when we think about scaffolding, I think we often think in just like one direction, sort of a linear, outline, 5 pages, full paper, that sort of thing, where sounds like you're reflecting also industry where, things can go up the stairs and then they come back down, that sort of thing. It can go in both directions or multi-directions.
Right, because in industry, especially when the students are starting out, they don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
Right.
There's a lot they don't know. And so the process needs to work with it moving up. And even if the work moves from an analyst to an associate and the associate does the changes, the associate sees appropriate, and then it moves up to the vice president, and then it comes all the way back down in a circling again. And I experienced this when I was working. It was the same process. And I moved my work up. I got things pointed out to me that were not correct. And it's also reinforces the idea that you're not supposed to know every single thing, but you are supposed to be able to have a discussion with me so that we can talk about how to improve the work. And so the idea is not do this one thing, I'm going to put a grade on it. The idea is the learning keeps going, and as you make corrections, And also I reflect, I've done this a lot of times, so I'm going to be able to point out the common mistakes that students make, and I'm going to point you to those parts of the spreadsheet. And it's the same thing in industry. There are going to be things that as people get more experience, they know what to look for. And that's how it works in doing this project. I know what to look for. I know how to direct them to, this is an area where students pretty much have difficulties. Let's go to that part of the spreadsheet and see how you did it there.
So iterative and interactive, very not very sort of memorize this and then tell me it back on the exam kind of thing.
Right. And the idea that we can just share screens on Zoom makes this type of work way easier than back in the olden days when the student would come and bring their laptop and we would both try to be working. And it's now the student can share their screen and I can point to them and they can do the work and everybody can be focused on the same thing. So it's actually using Zoom and dialing in is, just like the conference calls of old.
Yeah.
And how it works in industry, because so many people in industry are working from home. So many people who are working in banking and modeling and finance, they are working from home and they are expected to be able to collaborate and do their work online. Yeah. So that's also what we're doing.
Yeah. So the chronic complaint, of course, from students is lopsided engagement. The diligent student or student does all the work while her classmates maybe do less, and she ends up carrying students who do less or none at all. How do you address or mitigate this? It sounds in some sense like the project itself compels a certain discipline and regular interactions with you would, but do you have any other thoughts on that? Since that's just the one thing that a lot of faculty say, I don't want to manage that kind of social dynamic.
There's no doubt that I feel as if every semester there's going to be one or two that I can't account for all of that every time.
Yeah.
The students do evaluate each other. Okay. So for what it's worth. And the students that want to take something away from the class, they will take something away from the class. They also can, for this big project, they choose their partners. And that I feel like helps them know they've met each other by this time. They're juniors and seniors, and they have a sense of who they will collaborate well with.
Almost a cohort at that point.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So that helps. I do have another group assignment, which is an in-class group assignment that I also do in this class, which is group quizzing.
Yeah.
And that is, those groups are randomly assigned, and it's just one partner. And in that sense, it's again, these end up being fairly low stakes because they're maybe 5% of your overall grade, and there's a few of them throughout the semester. You work together to answer questions for the quiz, and you've been randomly assigned. So if you're concerned about your grade, you need to study the material. If you want to just roll the dice and see how it goes, I guess you're welcome to do that also. I can't, help that. The way those quizzes are administered is through a scratch-off answer sheet. And I think in a way it speaks to the dynamic of giving a group quiz because as the students are taking the quiz, let's say they think the answer is C, there's a scratch-off answer sheet and they will scratch off column C.
Yeah.
Number 1, column C. If they're correct, a star is revealed underneath. And if they're not correct, they get another chance to, because the point is, I want them to get to the correct answer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You don't want to just sort of penalize them for showing up.
The idea is just, I want you to know the material. And then with this way, they get instant feedback too.
Yeah.
Right? As they're progressing down this group quiz, I've had, or I could share that I had a student give me direct feedback on this to say she realized after a couple of them where she disagreed with her partner and she ceded to him to say, okay, well, we'll go with your idea. After twice that he was not correct, she said,
she should
okay,
trust her own judgment.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a self kind of revealing process there of trust yourself, or maybe rely more on your partner, or just because the feedback is instantaneous, it's very different than, well, okay, we'll circle C and then we'll get our result a week from now.
After we're no longer invested, really.
Right.
Yeah.
After we're not talking with each other, and so the feedback that's coming from the quiz and then the feedback also that you're getting from your partner, I think just makes a dynamic that you quickly learn who's carrying their weight or who's bringing more to the table, and you can rely on that.
Yeah. Yeah. What other sort of frustrations that you have and you may have mitigated with this emphasis on group work, or that you live with, because this is very effective pedagogy in a number of ways. And so, what are some caveats you may offer, or some, well, I ran into this and here's how I deal with that?
Like I said, there are going to be a few students that I feel like they didn't get the material because they relied on the other group members. In general, I've seen that I think by keeping the group number to a maximum for the project of 3, I think that mitigates complete free riding. So when it's this size of a project with this few students, they need to divide it so that they can, move through the project. I think keeping the group size below 3 and below is important. And like I said, I do have to, some of the things as far as students coming to me and saying they can't find a partner, I do try to do a little matchmaking.
Yeah,
but students sometimes have a hard time just connecting with each other in person.
Yep.
And I just tell them it's something they need to work through, and I kind of call them up and say, try to make a match here. But I do have to live with a little bit of free riding. I've seen, though, in the quiz grades that, when they're working together with the scratch off, I have seen people, when they perform the way a grade that they don't want, I've definitely seen their effort improve going forward, and an understanding that, okay, we're going to be collaborating, but I need to bring my best effort to make sure that we both get out of here with so there's a learning process for them
throughout the semester.
Throughout the semester. And it's so enjoyable to watch them talk about an answer and work to eliminate. It's a multiple choice. So they talk about an answer, work to eliminate the ones that they both agree wouldn't be right, and then talk through what they think, of the remaining. Okay, I remember this from this presentation. Okay, didn't we talk about it this way? Is that what I'm thinking of here?
Yeah.
And have them talk about the solution and then scratch off and then see if they get it right.
Yeah.
Like there's a little
it's
bit
almost
of
a gamification kind of going on. Yeah.
They enjoy it, and they enjoy getting celebrating with each other, yes, that was the right thing. Or if they get it wrong, to say, okay, well, I guess the way you thought of it, I didn't have that one right. So that process in itself is worth just, living with the things that are a little distasteful about group projects.
And it has to be said, I mean, compared to what? Compared to more traditional pedagogy, which often falls back on a kind of a cram for the test model, and then students mostly forget by the time, even by the spring semester, they've forgotten what they did in the fall. So on balance, this is a far more interactive and probably more effective method of getting students to learn by doing. Now, it sounds, you've mentioned a couple of times that you've brought, you've constructed this in part by consulting your own experience out in the banking or the business world. And it sounds like you're having your students do pretty close analogs to what they're going to do, and they're using real world data?
Yes. We start with, I have a list of, these are banks, currently publicly traded banks. Go to the SEC website, pull down their current financial information, work with that financial information. And then as we are located in Buffalo, the largest bank presence here is M&T Bank. Many of our students leave here to work for M&T.
Yeah.
And so in order to have the students all be familiar with M&T, no one group will pick M&T as their bank, but I work up the M&T analysis, and each group will compare how their bank performs and their bank's ratios to M&T.
To M&T.
So if they're working at M&T and they're able to talk about that M&T is $200 billion bank, it runs itself fairly conservatively compared to peers. It has a loan portfolio that looks like this. This is their specialty. And through working this project, they should be able to, they have some tidbits about our local employer. So they're using real world data of a bank of their choosing, and then they're also forced to take a dive into one of our local, an important employer. We have a lot of alumni working there, and we have a good relationship with M&T. So,
and so you're providing your students also an example of how to do the work done.
Yes. Well, and I've been lucky to be able to have the treasurer of M&T join us a few times, and he has brought a presentation that he has shown to the board. And
wow,
when we look at his presentation, and he has a whole peer workup, and now I clearly say we don't have the time or horsepower to do something, this analysis, this deep. But do you see that they're talking about net interest margin, we're talking about net interest margin? Do you see that they're talking about their loan portfolio balance, and you're talking about that same thing? And it's very nice to have the proof of these are the important metrics and ratios. This is what bankers are concerned about, and I'm asking you to dig into those same exact things. So it really, when I can have a representative from M&T come, I've had a couple of bankers this semester, they really can pull the whole thing together for me. And it's very nice, too, because it's a presentation that the banker will bring that at the beginning of the semester, I'm confident they would have no idea what any of these words even mean.
Yeah.
And now, midway through, we can have an intelligent conversation about the rebalancing of the loan portfolio. So it's
which is also confidence building for students if they're listening to a real world banker of a very successful enterprise, and they can understand at least a lot of what's being said, and absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like then that, part of what comes out of this group work is also, and this is often stated, students are having to navigate some social dynamics, perhaps in miniature, that they'll have to navigate in the real world with a variety of different personalities in any business institution, among clients, things like that. Things that are not necessarily published in the textbook, but nevertheless are going to be very important to them.
And as people are working more and more from home too.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they are working on a spreadsheet and they're all working from home and sharing the same document, which, 10 years ago certainly would have been more difficult for sure. A speaker that came yesterday was talking about that he puts together, he's about 2 years out of Canisius, he's putting together presentations that about 700 or more people are joining his call.
Wow.
And he's doing it, he's presenting from his desk. And so in the same sense, I'm having the students put together these presentations. They do the spreadsheet work, and then they need to make sense of it in the presentation in a way that they would be presenting to online, presenting over Zoom, over a WebEx, and in a very similar manner. So to the extent that, yes, we're very much working in groups in the real world, just as I did it many years ago. I mean, my partners, though, were one cubicle over.
Yeah.
And now their partner is in Florida or DC or Chicago, but it's still the same dynamic. They're still like these three people on a team, they just all now happen to be in different cities. So the fact that, somebody might live on campus or off campus or they need to navigate all of that too, because that's how it goes. And the sharing of online makes it a lot easier, and there's not a lot of complaints about we can't find a time to meet. I haven't had that complaint actually at all, that we can't find a time to meet, because they can just, if it happens to be 10 o'clock at night that they dial in, then that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like they get a lot of very personalized feedback from you. So that's a major part of your pedagogy here is feedback to students that is not sort of, a letter grade, a number, but is more speaking directly to their work, at least in 3-person teams. But
right. I think that's something I learned in that before I had this kind of mid project feedback, I waited till the end.
Yeah.
And I got these projects based on numbers that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So they did a lot of work and a big write-up on something that was wrong. And so it occurred to me that I need to be circling back. And I take class time. I have one class out of the semester. We don't meet. And I have half an hour time slots where I'm meeting, or 20-minute time slots during that class. And then in other times to be able to just all Zoom in and work together because it doesn't make sense otherwise. But yeah, that's an enjoyable part. They like showing off their work in a sense too. They enjoy not waiting to the end. They enjoy pulling up the spreadsheet and saying, okay, we did this. These are the tables we put together, and telling me about it even before it's put together as a final presentation. Yeah.
That's always a good sign when they get personally invested in the work. Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Mary Becker, thanks so much for joining us today.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Canisius Pedagogy Primer podcast. Relevant links can be found in show notes. For more helpful resources for teaching and learning, visit www.canisius.edu/coli, canisius.edu/coli.